Those eyes I once gazed into before falling asleep were now staring at me through a phone screen, and there wasn't a trace of shame in them. October in Florida is when the heat finally lets go, and you can open your apartment windows without turning the place into an inferno. It was precisely during this time that I realized my life was an illusion, neatly assembled from lies and half-truths. It all started with phone calls. Maria suddenly began leaving the living room every time the phone rang. At first, I didn't pay much attention to it. Everyone has private conversations, right? But when it became a regular occurrence and she started deleting her call history, something inside me tensed up. The way she would glance at the screen, her face would light up with a smile I hadn't seen directed at me in months, and then she'd disappear into the bedroom or bathroom. Sometimes I'd hear her soft laughter through the door, intimate, warm, the kind of laughter that should have been reserved for me. But it wasn't. It was for someone else. We met 5 years ago in a coffee shop in downtown, where I was meeting with a client about designing his new apartment. She was sitting at the next table, and when our eyes met, I felt something like an electric shock. 8 months later we were married, quickly, maybe too quickly, but it seemed right at the time. My name is Hector, and I run a small interior design studio in St. Petersburg. The work doesn't bring wealth, but it gives me the freedom to create. I love transforming spaces, seeing how the right color palette or furniture arrangement can completely change how people feel in their homes. My studio is modest, just me and occasionally a freelance assistant when projects pile up, but it's mine, and I take pride in every completed design. Maria works as a horseback riding instructor at an elite equestrian club on the outskirts of town, a place where wealthy people teach their children or simply entertain themselves. She'd come home smelling of horses and leather, her boots muddy, talking about her students with genuine enthusiasm. Or at least that's what I thought it was. The 4th year of our marriage turned out to be the year of silence. Not that comfortable silence when two people simply understand each other without words. No, this was the silence of emptiness when you sit next to a person and realize their thoughts are somewhere far away. Her body was there at the dinner table, on the couch during movie nights, in our bed at night, but her mind, her heart, her attention, all of it was somewhere else with someone else. I had been married before. 5 years of marriage that ended 7 years ago. Back then, the divorce was a slow fade, without drama, just two people who realized they were walking different paths. We'd grown apart gradually, like two trees planted too close together that eventually had to be separated. Maybe that's why I was so reluctant to acknowledge the obvious with Maria. I was afraid history was repeating itself. But this time was different. This time there was laughter, quiet, tender laughter I heard through the bedroom door when she talked on the phone. This time there were equestrian club corporate events that suddenly started happening every 2 weeks. This time there were new clothes I'd never seen, perfume she'd never worn before, a glow in her eyes that would fade the moment she looked at me. One evening when Maria said she was working late, I decided to act. My brother Walt, who works in security, helped me purchase a mini camera. We installed it in the living room, disguised as an ordinary clock on the shelf. The setup was simple but effective, high resolution, motion activated, with enough storage for weeks of footage. The first few days, nothing. I almost felt relieved, almost convinced myself I was being paranoid. Then, on Wednesday, the camera captured what changed everything. Maria came home at 6 in the evening, 3 hours earlier than she'd said. She quickly took a shower, changed into a dress I'd never seen before, a sleek black number that hugged her curves, and left. She returned only after midnight. I reviewed the recordings for the past month. The pattern repeated 4 times. For times she'd come home early, transformed herself, and disappeared into the night. For times she'd lied about where she was and what she was doing. The next morning at breakfast I watched her. Maria was spreading butter on toast, and her movements were so familiar, so domestic. How could she sit here so calmly, knowing what she was doing? How could she look me in the eye, ask about my day, kiss my cheek, all while carrying this massive secret? How was the corporate event? I asked, keeping my voice casual. She looked up, and for a moment I saw something like panic flash across her face, but it quickly disappeared, replaced by her practiced smile. Boring as always. You know these rich people. They need to show off their yachts and money. Yachts. She said it herself. The word hung in the air between us. I filed it away, another piece of the puzzle I was slowly assembling. My sister Jill called that same day. She always had a sixth sense for problems. We'd been close since childhood, and she could read my moods better than anyone. You sound terrible, she said without preamble. Everything's complicated, I replied, looking out the window at the downtown streets where tourists strolled leisurely through the evening lanes. Is it about Maria? I didn't answer, but my silence said everything. "Come over," Jill suggested. "Let's talk." I went. Her house in Old Northeast smelled of coffee and cinnamon. She always baked when she was nervous. It was a comforting smell, reminding me of our childhood when she'd bake cookies while I did my homework at the kitchen table. "Tell me," she said, pouring coffee into her favorite mugs, the ones we'd bought together at a local pottery shop years ago. I told her. About the calls, about the camera, about the lies. Jill listened silently, and when I finished she stared out the window for a long time, her fingers wrapped around her mug. "You know Thomas cheated on me?" she suddenly said, mentioning her ex-husband. I pretended not to notice for a long time. Thought if I didn't acknowledge the problem, it would disappear on its own. It didn't. It only got worse. I wasted months trying to convince myself I was wrong, that I was being paranoid, that I was seeing things that weren't there. But they were there. They were always there. What did you do? Gathered evidence and left. And you know what? The worst part wasn't that he cheated. The worst part was that I lost a year of my life living in a lie. A year I can never get back. A year of pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. Her words lodged in me like a splinter, painful and impossible to ignore. The next time Maria mentioned another corporate event, I was ready. The camera again captured her return home to change clothes. But this time I decided to act differently. I needed more information, more pieces to this puzzle. I called Eva, Maria's colleague from the equestrian club. We'd met several times at mutual gatherings, and she seemed like an honest person. Her voice was always warm and genuine, and I'd seen how she interacted with the horses and students. There was a kindness there that felt real. "Eva, sorry for the inconvenience," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "I can't reach Maria, and I need to pass her an urgent document. She said she's at the club's corporate event. Can you tell me where it's taking place?" The pause on the other end was eloquent. Long, too long. "Hector," Eva finally said, and there was compassion in her voice that made my stomach drop. "We don't have any corporate event today. The last one was a month ago." I thanked her and hung up. So it was a lie. Not a suspicion, not an assumption, pure, undeniable lie. The evidence was mounting, piece by piece, building a picture I didn't want to see but couldn't look away from. Walt helped me find a lawyer. Thad was experienced, with gray temples and the tired eyes of someone who'd seen too many human tragedies. His office was modest but professional, with certificates on the walls and family photos on his desk. A reminder that good marriages did exist, even if mine wasn't one of them. "The video from the camera is good," he said, reviewing the recordings on his laptop. "But we need more. We need to establish who she's with and where exactly. Florida is a no-fault divorce state, but evidence of infidelity can still impact certain aspects of the case, especially regarding credibility. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel and click like if you enjoy this story. I always read your comments and analyze which stories you like best so that I can create better stories. Thank you. I will continue the story." The next 2 weeks were hell of waiting. Maria continued living her normal life, cooking dinners, watching series, kissing me goodnight. And each of these actions now seemed to me like a theatrical performance. I watched her move through our apartment, this space we'd built together, and wondered how much of our life had been real and how much had been an act. She'd make my favorite breakfast on Saturday mornings, scrambled eggs with peppers and onions, toast with butter, fresh orange juice. She'd curl up next to me on the couch during movie nights, her head on my shoulder, and I'd wonder if she was thinking about him. When we'd pass each other in the hallway, she'd smile and touch my arm, and I'd want to scream to demand the truth, but I held it in. I needed to be strategic. I needed to be smart. The breakthrough came by accident. I was working on a project for a client who owned a small yacht. During the discussion of details, he casually mentioned something that made my blood run cold. "By the way, did you know your wife loves sea cruises? I saw her last month near Egmont Key at one of the private parties. She was with some man." The world froze for a moment. My vision tunneled, and I had to grip the edge of the desk to steady myself. "That was probably someone from her colleagues," I somehow managed to say, forcing my voice to remain calm. "Possibly," he smiled, oblivious to the bomb he'd just dropped. "They looked very close. You know, the way couples look when they can't keep their hands off each other." That evening I sat in the darkness of the living room, waiting for Maria. The apartment was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of traffic. When she walked in, smiling and relaxed, something inside me finally broke. The last thread of hope I'd been clinging to snapped. "How was your day?" she asked, kissing my cheek, and I could smell unfamiliar cologne on her skin. "Interesting," I replied. "Met with a client." He was telling me about a party on a yacht near Egmont Key. I saw her freeze for a moment before recovering her smile. It was just a fraction of a second, but I caught it. "Oh, that's far from here," she said lightly, moving toward the kitchen. "Yes, about 50 kilometers, I continued, watching every change in her expression. "Nice place for private parties. Beautiful water, secluded. Perfect for people who want privacy." She quickly recovered. "Probably. I've never been there." What? Another lie. They were piling up now, layer upon layer, building a wall between us made entirely of deception. Walt suggested hiring a private detective, but I refused. Didn't want someone else digging through this swamp. Instead, I started gathering information myself. I spent hours online, cross-referencing information, building a timeline, creating a file that grew thicker each day. Through the Equestrian Club's social media, I found photos from various events. And in one of them, taken 3 months ago, I saw Maria. She was standing next to a horse with a man, tall, athletic, with a confident smile. The caption under the photo read, "Our regular client Robyn at a private lesson." Robyn. Now he had a name. Now he was real, not just a shadow, not just my paranoid imagination. A quick search showed that Robyn worked as a dispatcher for an airline. His schedule was flexible, which explained why they could meet at different times. I found his LinkedIn profile, his social media accounts. I studied his face, trying to understand what she saw in him that she didn't see in me anymore. I felt anger and pain fighting inside me. Part of me wanted confrontation, to scream, to demand explanations. But another part, the one that remembered my first divorce and my sister's advice, said to be smart. Emotions wouldn't help me now. I needed to be calculated, methodical, strategic. Thad laid out a plan, spreading documents across his desk like a battle strategy. "We'll use everything you have," he said. "Video, testimony, photographs. Florida operates under the principle of equitable distribution of property, but evidence of infidelity can influence certain aspects of the case. More importantly, it establishes credibility. If she's willing to lie about this, what else is she lying about?" "I want more," I said, leaning forward. "I want her to feel consequences." Thad looked at me carefully, his experienced eyes assessing. "Revenge is a dangerous road, Hector. I've seen it destroy people. But I understand. There are ways to do this legally, ways that won't come back to haunt you." The first step was simple. I withdrew $18,000 from our joint account and gave it to Walt for safekeeping. These were my savings, money I'd earned through my work, and I didn't want it to disappear in the chaos of divorce. It was money from projects I'd completed, from late nights and early mornings, from building my business from scratch. The second step was more delicate. I anonymously sent the club management the camera footage showing Maria returning home to change before corporate events that didn't actually exist. With the video, I included copies of the club's schedule proving there were no events on those dates. I made sure to send it from an untraceable email account, using a public computer at a library downtown. I also created an anonymous social media account and left several careful comments under the club's posts, hinting at unprofessional behavior by some instructors who used the workplace for personal purposes. I was subtle, never directly naming anyone, but planting seeds of doubt that would grow and spread. The third step was informing the yacht owner, my client, about his vessel being used for meetings he might not have known about. I presented it as concern for his reputation, since private parties should remain private. I suggested he might want to review who had access to his yacht and when. All of this took a week. A week during which I continued living with Maria under one roof, smiling at her, asking about her day, playing the role of the unsuspecting husband while systematically dismantling the life she'd built on lies. The explosion came on Tuesday. Maria returned from work pale and trembling, her hands shaking as she set down her bag. I'd never seen her look so rattled. "I was called into management," she said, sinking onto the couch. "Someone sent them some videos. They were asking questions about my professional ethics. They asked if I was having relationships with clients. They asked about my schedule. They asked why I'd told them I was attending club events when there weren't any." I made a sympathetic face, fighting to keep the satisfaction out of my expression. "What videos?" She looked at me, and suspicion appeared in her eyes for the first time. I could see her mind working, trying to figure it out. "I don't know. They didn't show me. But they implied personal relationships with clients. They said someone had documented inconsistencies in my statements about my whereabouts." "And what did you tell them?" "That it's absurd, of course. But you know what's worse? Several of my best clients suddenly canceled their lessons. It's like someone told them something about me. 3 of my highest paying clients, gone in one day. I remained silent, watching her nervously stir her coffee. The mug was one from our honeymoon in Key West, a happy memory now tainted by everything that had happened since. "Hector," she suddenly said. "We need to talk." My heart raced. Was this the moment? "I'm listening." She took a deep breath and I could see her gathering courage. "I know things haven't been right between us lately. I feel the distance. I met someone. Finally the truth was coming out." "Who is he?" My voice was calmer than I felt inside. Years of practice hiding my emotions in business meetings served me well now. "His name is Robyn. He took writing lessons from me. We got close." "How close?" She looked away, unable to meet my eyes. "Close enough. I didn't plan this, Hector. It just happened." The irony of her words almost made me laugh. How many times do cheaters use this phrase? As if affairs just materialize out of thin air, as if there's no choice involved, no series of decisions that lead to betrayal. But I held it in. "Do you love him?" Pause. Then. "Yes. I'm sorry, but yes. With him I feel what I didn't feel with you. We both love travel, parties, spontaneity. With you everything was predictable. Safe. Boring. Predictable. 4 years of marriage reduced to one word. 4 years of building a life together, of supporting each other, of being a partner. All of it dismissed as predictable. "And what now?" I asked. "I want a divorce," she said quietly. "I understand this is painful, but continuing to lie would be worse. I should have told you sooner. I know that. But I was afraid and I'm a coward and I'm sorry." I nodded. "Okay. Let's get divorced." Her surprise was genuine. She'd expected a fight, tears, begging. I could see it in her face, the preparation for a battle that wasn't coming. "Just like that?" "No," I replied. "Not just like that. But I won't keep someone who doesn't want to be with me. I learned that lesson in my first marriage. You can't force someone to love you. You can't negotiate desire. You can't argue someone into wanting to stay." The following weeks were legal hell. Thad presented all the collected evidence, videos, photographs, Eva's testimony about the lies regarding corporate events. Maria's lawyer tried to minimize the damage, but the facts spoke for themselves. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable, damning. According to Florida's laws on equitable distribution, we split everything equally. The one-bedroom apartment in downtown worth about $280,000 was sold, the money divided. My $18,000 that I'd saved with Walt didn't fall into the joint property. I declared it as personal savings, separated before filing for divorce. Thad's careful planning had protected that much at least. But the most interesting part began after the official divorce. Jill called a month later, and I could hear the mix of satisfaction and concern in her voice. "Have you heard the news about Maria?" "What news?" "She lost her job at the equestrian club. Seems the professional ethics scandal turned out to be more serious than it seemed. They found multiple instances where she'd misrepresented her schedule. Several other instructors came forward with complaints about her behavior. The club couldn't afford the negative attention, not with their wealthy clientele. I said nothing but felt satisfaction warm me from the inside. "And I have friends who know Robyn," Jill continued. "His reputation in their social circle is ruined. Turns out the yacht owner is a very influential person, and he didn't appreciate how his property was being used. Robyn's been uninvited from several groups and clubs. Apparently, people don't like it when you abuse the trust of someone who's opened their home to you." Through 3 months, Walt reported seeing Maria. She was working at a completely different equestrian club, much less prestigious, on the outskirts of town. The kind of place with dusty rings and aging horses, not the gleaming facility she'd worked at before. "She asked about you," he said. "What exactly? How you're living? Whether you're seeing anyone?" It seemed like she regrets what happened. She looked tired, stressed. "Asked if you'd ever consider talking to her." "That doesn't matter anymore," I replied, and it was the truth. I'd moved past anger into something calmer, more detached. I moved to a new apartment in Old Northeast, near Jill. My design studio started to develop. It turned out that when you're not spending energy maintaining a dead relationship, you have enough for work. Projects flowed in, referrals multiplied, and I discovered I was actually good at this, better than I'd given myself credit for. I threw myself into work with renewed focus. Each project became an outlet for emotions I couldn't express any other way. I designed a nursery for a young couple expecting their first child, pouring all my lost dreams of family into creating the perfect space. I renovated a widow's living room, understanding her need to reimagine her space after loss. Every client became a story, every room a fresh start. 10 months after the divorce, Jill sent me a link to a social media post. Maria and Robyn had gotten married. In the photo they were smiling, embracing each other against the backdrop of Anna Maria Island Beach. The sunset behind them was beautiful, golden and pink, the kind of romantic scene that belonged in a movie. I stared at that photo for a long time. Searched within myself for pain, anger, jealousy. But found only emptiness and slight relief. They deserved each other. Two people who built happiness on the ruins of someone else's life. Maybe they'd truly be happy. Maybe they wouldn't. But it was no longer my story. They'd have to live with what they'd done, with how they'd started. Every anniversary would be a reminder that their relationship began with betrayal. Every argument would carry the unspoken question, if you did it to someone else, would you do it to me? That was their burden to carry now, not mine. My story was a year of recovery. It was therapy that Jill had recommended, sitting in a comfortable chair while a patient therapist helped me untangle the knot of emotions I'd been carrying. It was new projects and new acquaintances. It was understanding that sometimes the best revenge is simply to live on and build a better life. I started dating again, cautiously at first. Coffee dates that sometimes led nowhere, sometimes led to second dates. I wasn't looking for anything serious, wasn't ready to trust again, not yet. But I was learning to be open to possibilities, to believe that not everyone would betray that trust. That evening I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, looking at the downtown lights. October had come to Florida again, bringing coolness and the promise of new beginnings. The air smelled of salt from the bay and jasmine from my neighbor's garden. My grandmother once said, "Life isn't about avoiding falls. It's about how you get up after them." I fell hard. But I got up. And this time, stronger, wiser, ready for whatever tomorrow brings. Maria made her choice. I made mine. And although our roads diverged painfully and messily, I don't regret what happened. Because now I know, it's better to live in truth even if it hurts than in a lie even if it's comfortable. The phone rang, a message from a new client about a project. I smiled and replied, "Life goes on. My life goes on. I'm designing a home office for a writer, a cozy reading nook for a book lover, a meditation space for someone seeking peace. Each project is a reminder that spaces can be transformed, that what's broken can be rebuilt into something better." Sometimes I pass the old equestrian club where Maria used to work. I don't feel anything when I do. It's just a building now, just a place, emptied of the significance it once held. The memories don't sting anymore. They're just part of my story, the chapter that had to end so new ones could begin. And that's the best revenge of all. Thank you for watching this video. YouTube may no longer suggest my channel to you, so subscribe to it to receive new interesting stories. You will also help the channel grow and improve the quality of its content. The screen now displays a playlist with other interesting stories that you can listen to. You can also write in the comments what stories you would like to see on the channel.